Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Speak Smart podcast. Today, we're diving into something that might surprise you. How understanding the culture of English-speaking countries can seriously boost your English learning. It's like unlocking a secret level in a language game.
Yeah, it's fascinating. Learning a language isn't just about grammar and vocabulary. It's about stepping into a whole new world. Customs, values, ways of thinking.
Right. It's like our source material for this deep dive pointed out. Another podcast also called Speak Smart. They said language and culture are inseparable.
Like two sides of the same coin. One of their sources used a great analogy. Imagine language as the threads of a tapestry. Well, culture provides the pattern, the colors, the richness, and the meaning.
Okay, I can picture that. But how does this actually play out in real life?
Okay, let's take the example of idioms, those expressions that don't literally translate. If you hear someone say, "It's raining cats and dogs," you might be picturing furry creatures falling from the sky.
Yeah. That would be a sight.
But understanding the cultural context behind the idiom helps you understand its true meaning. Heavy rain. Without that cultural knowledge, even simple phrases can become confusing.
So you're saying that by understanding the culture, we unlock a deeper layer of meaning in the language.
Precisely. It's about going beyond the surface level of words and grammar and diving into the heart of how people communicate within a specific culture.
That makes so much sense. Now I'm curious to explore some of these English-speaking cultures and see how they shape the language. Let's start with the big one, the United States. What makes their culture so unique? And how does that influence American English?
Well, Speak Smart described the U.S. as a melting pot of cultures, which is really reflected in its language. Think about how American English has been shaped by influences from all over the world, especially from immigrant communities.
That's interesting. So we're not just talking about typical American stereotypes like hamburgers and Hollywood.
No, not at all. For example, the influence of Hispanic culture on American English is huge, particularly in terms of slang and everyday expressions. Words like amigo and fiesta have become part of the American lexicon.
Wow, that's a great example of how cultural exchange enriches a language. I bet there are tons of other influences woven into American English.
Absolutely. It's a constantly evolving language that reflects the dynamism and diversity of American culture itself.
So diving into American culture through movies, music, and literature can give us a deeper understanding of the nuances of American English.
Exactly. You start to pick up on those subtle cues, the rhythm, the slang, the humor, all those elements that make American English so unique.
This is fascinating. Okay, let's shift gears and head across the pond to the UK. How does British culture impact the way English is spoken there?
Well, the UK is interesting because it has this incredible sense of history and tradition, which is deeply intertwined with its language. Even within the UK, you have distinct regional dialects and accents.
Right. I've always been fascinated by how a word can be pronounced so differently in different parts of the UK. Like the word bath can sound completely different depending on where you are.
That's a perfect example. And this regional variation is a testament to the rich tapestry of cultures within the UK. The Speak Smart podcast highlighted British humor as a prime example of how culture shapes communication.
Oh, yes. British humor is so distinct with its dry wit, sarcasm, and clever wordplay.
It's often about understatement and irony, which can be quite subtle and require a good understanding of British social cues to fully appreciate.
So you're saying that to really get British humor, I need to understand a cultural context.
Absolutely. It's not just about understanding the words. It's about deciphering the layers of meaning embedded in the culture itself.
Okay, this is making me want to binge watch some British comedy shows right now. All right, next up on our cultural tour, we have Canada. What stood out to me is that Canada is bilingual, with both English and French as official languages. How does this influence Canadian culture and, in turn, Canadian English?
Canada's bilingual nature creates a unique cultural blend. You have the influence of both British and French traditions, creating a fascinating mix of cultural expressions.
And I can see how that would impact the language as well.
Absolutely. Canadian English has borrowed words and phrases from French, and it also has its own unique slang and expressions. For example, toque is a Canadian term for a winter hat, and a is a common tag question at the end of sentences.
So Canadian English has its own distinct flavor, shaped by its multicultural heritage.
Exactly. It's a testament to how language evolves and adapts within different cultural contexts.
This is giving me a serious case of wanderlust. All right, last stop on our whirlwind cultural tour. Australia. What makes Australian culture so unique? And how does that Aussie spirit infuse itself into Australian English?
Well, Australia is known for its laid-back lifestyle, its love of the outdoors, and its unique sense of humor. And all this is reflected in Australian English, which is full of colorful slang and a relaxed, informal tone.
I've always heard that Australians shorten a lot of words and have nicknames for almost everything.
You're right. They love to abbreviate words like brekkie for breakfast and arvo for afternoon, and they're famous for their use of rhyming slang, like dog and bone for telephone.
That's so creative. It sounds like Australian English is all about being playful with the language.
It is. And that playfulness reflects the Australian spirit of being down to earth, friendly, and having a good laugh.
Okay, I'm officially adding Australia to my travel bucket list. So we've explored these 4 distinct English-speaking cultures: the US, the UK, Canada, and Australia. But what does all of this mean for someone who's learning English?
It means that immersing yourself in these cultures can make your learning journey so much richer and more enjoyable.
I can definitely see that. But how exactly do we go about immersing ourselves in these cultures?
Yeah.
Especially if we can't just hop on a plane and travel.
Well, the Speak Smart podcast gave us some great advice on practical ways to bring these cultures into our everyday lives. It's all about finding those accessible entry points that spark your interest and make learning feel less like work and more like an adventure.
I'm all ears. Tell me more.
One of the most accessible and enjoyable ways to immerse yourself is through movies and TV shows.
Oh, absolutely. It's like having a front row seat to another culture.
Exactly. And the Speak Smart podcast recommended some great ones to get you started for a taste of American workplace humor and everyday life. They suggested The Office, both the US and UK versions, to see how the same concept plays out in different cultures.
That's a brilliant idea. Seeing those cultural differences side by side would be really insightful.
Right. Then there's the classic Friends for its conversational American English, an iconic portrayal of friendship dynamics in New York City. And for a peek into British history and those charming accents, Downton Abbey is a must-watch.
Don't forget Sherlock. That one's a personal favorite of mine. It's great for mystery lovers and picking up on that quick-witted British dialogue.
Excellent choice. And for a glimpse into Australian life and culture, the podcast recommended Neighbours, which is apparently a long-running soap opera with a dedicated fan base.
So we can learn about different cultures and improve our English just by watching TV. Sign me up.
Exactly. And don't be afraid to use subtitles strategically. You can start with subtitles in your native language if you need them, then gradually transition to English subtitles as you get more comfortable.
It's like a stepping stone to better listening comprehension.
Precisely. And as you watch, pay attention to the way people speak, their accents, their intonation, their use of slang and idioms. It's all part of the cultural immersion experience.
Okay, what about music? I love listening to music in English, but I don't always understand all the lyrics.
Music is a fantastic way to immerse yourself in a culture and pick up new vocabulary and expressions. The Speak Smart podcast suggested listening to artists like Taylor Swift, Ed Sheeran, and Adele, who are popular in various English-speaking countries.
Those are great choices. Their music is catchy and easy to sing along to.
Exactly. Try reading the lyrics while you listen, and see if you can decipher the meaning behind the songs. You'll be surprised by how much you can learn just by paying attention to the lyrics.
I'm going to start doing that more often. What about podcasts? I listen to a lot of podcasts in my native language, but I haven't explored many English language podcasts yet.
Podcasts are a goldmine for language learning and cultural immersion. They offer a variety of accents, topics, and styles, so you're sure to find something that interests you. The Speak Smart podcast had some great recommendations for English learning podcasts too. They suggested The English We Speak for British idioms, Luke's English podcast for British culture and storytelling, and ESL Pod for language tips and vocabulary, all aimed at English language learners.
Wow, they're podcasts specifically designed for English learners. That's amazing. I'll have to check those out.
You should. And don't forget about podcasts that cover topics you're passionate about, whether it's news, technology, culture, or anything else.
Right, so I can learn about something I'm interested in and improve my English at the same time. That's a win-win.
Exactly. The key is to find podcasts that engage you and keep you coming back for more. And the beauty of podcasts is that you can listen to them anytime, anywhere, while commuting, exercising, doing chores. It's like sneaking in language practice throughout your day.
I love that idea. Okay, this is all about listening and watching. But what about reading? I enjoy reading in my native language, but reading in English can feel challenging sometimes.
Reading is another powerful tool for language learning and cultural immersion. It helps you develop vocabulary, grammar, and reading comprehension skills, all while exposing you to different writing styles and cultural perspectives.
Do you have any tips for making reading in English more enjoyable and less daunting?
Absolutely. Start with material that matches your current level. If you're a beginner, try children's books or graded readers, which are specifically designed for English language learners. As you progress, you can move on to novels, short stories, and articles.
That makes sense. I wouldn't want to jump into Shakespeare right away.
Right. And the Speak Smart podcast recommended some great authors for English language learners to explore. They mentioned Roald Dahl, who wrote beloved children's classics like Charlie and the Chocolate Factory and Matilda. His books are known for their imaginative stories and engaging language. They also suggested Agatha Christie, the queen of mystery novels, for those who love a good whodunit.
Oh, I love Agatha Christie. Her stories are so captivating, and her writing is so elegant. I can see how reading her books could help me learn new vocabulary and improve my understanding of sentence structure.
Exactly. And remember, reading shouldn't feel like a chore. Choose books and articles that genuinely interest you. If you're passionate about a particular topic, whether it's history, science fiction, or travel, there's bound to be something out there in English that will capture your attention.
That's a great point. Reading should be a pleasure, not a punishment. So we've talked about movies, music, podcasts, and reading. All fantastic ways to immerse ourselves in English-speaking cultures.
Yeah.
But what about actually speaking the language? How can we get more practice with real-life conversations?
That's where things get really exciting. Nothing beats the thrill of actually using the language you're learning to communicate with others.
I agree, but it can be intimidating to start speaking, especially if you're not confident in your abilities. Do you have any advice for overcoming that initial fear and finding opportunities to practice speaking?
Absolutely. One of the best ways to practice speaking is to find language exchange partners. The Speak Smart podcast recommended websites like Tandem and HelloTalk, where you can connect with native English speakers who are learning your language.
It's like a language swap. I teach them my language and they teach me English.
Exactly. It's a mutually beneficial arrangement, and it's a great way to make new friends and learn about different cultures.
That sounds like fun. Are there other ways to find people to practice speaking with?
Of course. Think about your hobbies and interests. Are there any clubs or groups in your area where you could meet people who speak English? Maybe a hiking club, a book club, or a volunteer organization.
Those are great ideas. I could combine my hobbies with language practice. It wouldn't even feel like work.
Exactly. And don't underestimate the power of small talk. Chatting with the barista at your local coffee shop, asking for directions, or striking up a conversation with someone at the gym. All these seemingly small interactions can help you gain confidence and fluency.
So it's about finding those everyday opportunities to practice speaking, even if it's just a few sentences at a time.
Exactly. The more you use the language, the more comfortable you'll become. And remember, it's okay to make mistakes. Everyone makes mistakes when they're learning something new.
That's reassuring. I think I get caught up in trying to be perfect, and that holds me back from speaking freely.
I understand. It's natural to feel self-conscious. But try to shift your focus from perfection to progress. Celebrate those small victories, like being able to order your coffee in English, or having a short conversation with a native speaker.
You're right. It's those small steps that add up to big progress over time. Okay, so we've explored all these different ways to immerse ourselves in English-speaking cultures, from movies and music to podcasts and conversation practice. But what about the ultimate immersion experience?
Yeah.
Travel.
Yes. Traveling to an English-speaking country is like a cultural and linguistic boot camp. It's the ultimate opportunity to put all your skills to the test and experience the language and culture firsthand.
I can only imagine how much I would learn from traveling and interacting with locals. But what if traveling isn't an option right now? Are there ways to create a virtual immersion experience?
Absolutely. Technology has opened up so many possibilities for virtual cultural immersion. You can take online courses, watch documentaries, explore virtual tours of different cities, and even connect with people from around the world through video chat.
Wow. So I can travel the world from the comfort of my own home.
In a way, yes. And there are some fantastic language learning apps that can help you create a more structured virtual immersion experience. Apps like Duolingo, Babbel, and Memrise offer interactive lessons, vocabulary building activities, and pronunciation practice, all designed to make learning fun and engaging.
I've heard of those apps. They seem really popular. And they use gamification, which makes learning more enjoyable.
Exactly. And they often incorporate cultural elements into their lessons. So you're not just learning the language in isolation, you're getting a taste of the culture as well.
Okay, so even if we can't physically travel, we can still create a rich and immersive language learning experience through virtual means. This is giving me so many ideas.
That's great to hear. Remember, the key to successful language learning is finding methods that work for you and incorporating them into your daily life. It's about making it a habit, a part of your routine, rather than a chore you dread.
This has been so insightful. I feel like I have a whole new toolkit for approaching my English learning journey. But before we wrap up, I want to touch on something that the Speak Smart podcast emphasized: cultural awareness. They made it sound like this is a crucial element of becoming truly fluent in English.
You're absolutely right. Cultural awareness goes beyond just understanding the language. It's about understanding the social customs, values, and unspoken rules that govern communication in different cultures.
Can you give me some examples?
Of course. For instance, in some cultures, direct eye contact is considered a sign of respect, while in others, it can be seen as rude or confrontational.
That's fascinating. I would never have thought about that.
Right. And personal space varies widely across cultures. What might be considered a comfortable distance in one culture might feel too close or too distant in another.
So being aware of these cultural nuances can help us avoid awkward situations and misunderstandings.
Exactly. Cultural awareness is all about showing respect and empathy, which are essential for effective communication, no matter what language you're speaking.
This has been such an eye-opening conversation. I feel like I have a much deeper appreciation for the connection between language and culture now.
I'm glad to hear that. It's a fascinating and complex relationship. And the more we explore it, the more we learn about ourselves and the world around us.
So we've explored all these amazing English-speaking cultures, and we've learned about all these practical ways to immerse ourselves in them.
Yeah, it's been quite a journey. From understanding idioms and slang to exploring different accents and communication styles, we've covered a lot of ground.
And the best part is, it doesn't have to feel like work. We can learn and have fun at the same time by watching movies, listening to music, reading books, and even just chatting with people.
Exactly. It's all about finding what sparks your interest and makes you want to engage with the language and the culture.
The Speak Smart podcast really emphasized that point, that the key to success is making language learning a natural and enjoyable part of your life.
They're right. When you're genuinely curious and engaged, learning becomes an adventure rather than a chore.
Yeah, I'm already thinking about all the different things I want to try. Maybe I'll watch a British comedy show tonight or listen to an Australian podcast on my way to work tomorrow.
That's the spirit. And remember, every interaction, no matter how small, is an opportunity to learn and grow.
So even just ordering a coffee in English or asking for directions can be a valuable learning experience.
Absolutely. Those everyday interactions help you build confidence and fluency in a natural way.
This has been such an inspiring conversation. I feel like I have a whole new perspective on language learning.
I'm glad to hear that. And remember, the journey to fluency is an ongoing process. There's always something new to discover and explore.
The Speak Smart podcast really opened my eyes to the richness and diversity of English-speaking cultures around the world.
And they provided some fantastic tools and resources to help us navigate those cultures and embrace the beauty of the English language.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with a thought-provoking question that the podcast posed.
Oh yeah, they asked, what English-speaking culture are you most curious about?
What's one step you can take today to start experiencing it?
Maybe it's watching a movie, listening to a podcast, reading a book, or even just connecting with someone online from that culture.
Whatever it is, take that first step and see where it leads you. You might be surprised by what you discover. Thank you for joining us on this exciting exploration of English-speaking cultures. Keep an ear out for more insightful episodes coming soon.
And remember, the world is full of fascinating cultures and languages waiting to be discovered. Embrace the journey and enjoy the ride.
Thank you for listening to the Speak Smart podcast.